Well, everybody, this is Don, the vlog of many things. Hope everybody's having a good night tonight. We got a few people in chat tonight. Well, Tom's here, Steve's here, my wife's here, so that's different. Yeah. So basically, what we got going here is Eric is on a mission. He is picking up what, Tom? What kind of dog was it?
It's a Cavalier King and Poodle cross.
Hold on, we're going to try this one more time. Let me bring him back in. All right. You there?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Good.
Yeah, that as soon as we go live and we start pushing stuff, he just dies.
All right, let's do this. It's a poodle. It's okay. It's a poodle. So, all right. Hold on a minute. Sorry for the technical issues here, folks. We are attempting to troubleshoot Mr. Verolt's internet connection, but we'll get there. All right. You there?
I'm here.
All right. So basic.
Go on without him.
Tom, you got to go to chat.
Time out.
All right. I plan on handling. I'm going to help Tom troubleshoot tomorrow. So we'll get Tom. Okay, Antioch, how you doing? Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about forgiveness and the theory of it. And is forgiveness something you should give, or is it more healthy to not forgive? I know the biblical principle of forgiveness, Steve. You'll probably talk about that quite a bit. However, my internet connection is damn fine, Elk of Antioch. so Steve's and Eric's. It's Tom that seems to have the issue.
It's according to computers too.
Yeah. Death Angel Shadow Fugly, how you doing? So basically, we're going to talk, like I said, a little bit about forgiveness. We're going to talk about the biblical principle and kind of like a drive online I've seen lately, a lot on TikTok, where people are basically saying that, is it more healthy to not forgive? And they brought up, I think, some really interesting points about why not forgiving, in fact, might be better for you than to forgive. And Mrs. Death, yeah. No. I just, whatever. Tabletop Taproom says, forgiveness is not about the person being forgiven, it is about you. Yes, and that's an interesting point, Tom, because let's get a little bit into this. This is interesting to me. Tom has a background in religious studies, and so does Steve. And what Tom and my friend Eric do not know, I actually have a master's degree in what, Tina?
Divinity and theology with an emphasis on ancient world history.
Yep.
With the Renaissance period as your favorite.
Yep.
So when am I going to my next run fair?
Yep, from American University. So,
U of M and state household here.
Yep, U of M and state. Fugly says this. He says, forgiveness helps the forgiven more than the forgiven. Forgiving does not mean forgetting. If you lick me in the shin, I can forgive you, but not letting you near anymore. Tabletop Taproom says you can forgive, but that doesn't mean you forget. Elk of Antioch says, I will take notes. I'll meet with my pastor tomorrow at lunch. I'll ask his view. Hand orange covering eyes. And then Death Angel said, yeah, who knew? I don't talk about it much. But the thing is, Tom has been to seminary. I don't know which one that he went to. But, it's a couple things that people are pulling here. And people are really pulling the biblical standpoint as far as forgiveness. But really, does the biblical standpoint hold water? And I guess my argument to this is that there is a big push online, like I said, about sometimes it's healthier not to forgive. And the reason why is because being expected to forgive a person who's wronged you, when you actually think about it, if you're being you're pushed to forgive somebody, does that really serve you, or does that serve the person? You know, Fugly says married to a pastor for 38 years. Wow,
Wow.
Fugly, I did not know that, sir. And the thing is I, like I said, I understand deeply the biblical principles behind forgiveness. In fact, the New Testament really pushes forgiveness more than the Old Testament. Hold on a second. Tabletop Tap Room says, family member might be a crack addict and have robbed everyone in the family and come to you for forgiveness. That doesn't mean you'll let them have access to your house if they have robbed you repeatedly. Yes, but the thing is I think that forgiveness is based upon the wrong. You know, you know, you forgive. A lot of times, you forgive family for wrongs. You don't forget them, but you forgive them because they're family. But is forgiveness really something that's healthy for you to do? Because really, is it for you or is it for them? Elk of Antioch says, 5 of my cousins are pastors. One cousin has his master's of theology from the University of Wittenberg and his PhD from Cambridge. Interesting. Elk of Antioch says, we think less of him for not getting in Oxford. So it almost sounds like my sister you're talking about there, Tabletop Tap Room. Well, I mean, the thing is Steve, what's your take on this?
Well, Jesus says he says, how many times do you forgive your neighbor? 70 times 7. Now, the idea was supposed to be, forgive them infinitely, but I think there's also a point where you can just say, okay, I'm done forgiving because you're not willing to repent. Like, be as forgiving as possible, but then there's a certain point when you cut them off. Because even God says, after a certain point, if you're not willing to repent, then you're done. That's probably not the best way to say it, but that's essentially what he was saying.
That's essentially what he was saying.
Right. Yeah. After a certain point, you're done. And I think that follows with us too. It's the idea of, keep forgiving them. But if it gets to the point where they aren't truly repenting, then you can cut them off, and you're not wrong in doing that.
And I think that's a good point to make. And I think that's kind of the push on TikTok, because I think the point that people are trying to make with that is sort of like what you're saying, Steve, is that, when do you say enough is enough? How many times do you have to forgive a person? As an example, Tom, someone I forget in here mentioned, if you got a family member stealing from you, and I think it was Tom, and you're going to let him back in your house, you're not going to let him alone. Well, there's going to come to a point where you don't let him in the house, period.
Don't let him near the property.
Exactly. And, to me, with forgiveness is there's a mental health aspect to it. If you're constantly forcing yourself, okay, fine, I will forgive them, and then they wrong you again, and I forgive them, they wrong you again, and I'll bring something up to Tom. And I wish Eric was here to discuss this, because me and Tom and Eric were the target of a psychopath online who had a game company. And I don't care what anyone says. I'm never going to forgive that person, because that person not only attacked me, he attacked my wife, he attacked my dead daughter, and he just is a vicious human being. And real quick, Elkin Antok says, perhaps forgiveness should be ended, but protecting yourself from loss needs to be paramount. And Tabletop Taproom says that's called boundaries. Yes, and yes, it is boundaries. But the thing is, forgiveness is a... Hold on one second. Oh, never mind. That's not. You make a good point, Tom. That's called boundaries. And then Fugly says you can forgive somebody and still testify against them. Yes. And Tom says, if they have trouble with self-regulating themselves, then you have to enforce boundaries. Yes. But the thing is by forgiving somebody, I think what you're essentially saying is you're basically saying to them is that the wrong that you did to me is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let it go. I'm going to
don't let it
forget.
ruin
Yeah, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to give you a pass on it. Okay, because that's when you get into the definition of what is forgiveness. Death Angel Shadow says, try that when you jointly own the property and they steal your stuff, then make false claims and you demand your stuff back, get you arrested homeless for months while fighting it. Yeah, there comes a point where I think that it's more healthy to a person to say, you know what, I'm not going to go ahead and forgive you. You know what, I don't need to forgive you to have peace.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a lot of times what people do is people say, I need inner peace. I need to bring my inner peace in and settle on myself. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to say I forgive this person because it makes me feel better. And in those cases, you're not really forgiving somebody for the sake of forgiveness. You're forgiving them for the sake of your mental health.
Yeah, you're letting the pain go.
Yeah, but I think sometimes it's best just to say, you know, I don't need to forgive you to let the pain go. I'm not going to forgive you. I'm going to move on with my life. I'm going to be happy because by forgiving you, you're forcing me in a way to have to sit there and rehash your bullshit. You know what I mean? Fugly says forgiveness means they don't get to live in your head. Letting it go isn't the same as giving a pass. I kind of disagree with that because, you know, forgiveness. Well, I guess everyone has their own definition of it. But I think a lot of times what happens, and Fugly, you bring a good point up. You know, forgiveness means they don't get to live in your head, but still, letting it go, they don't have to live in your head. You know, like the psychopathic game owner. You know, I don't need. And Tom says I don't want to hold hate and anger in my heart as it keeps me in jail. I can forgive because it lets me out of jail. Forgiveness can also be processed. It doesn't need to be an instant thing. You see, Tom and Fugly, see, this is where I disagree. And I'm going to use the gentleman from North Carolina as an example. Okay. I'm not forgiving him. Okay. I don't hold on to it. I've moved on. I'm happy. But the thing is that, you know, I still am going to be mindful, you know, and careful of him because you need to do that to maintain your mental health. Tom says, I forgave the ex and moved on. It was liberating. Oh, I haven't forgave my ex, and it was very liberating.
Yeah.
You know? And that's just the whole point because, you know, it's like my dad said one time. My dad had a saying, if you really want to go ahead and, you know, people talk about forgiveness and revenge, you know, what's the best way to move forward? Like my dad says, the best way to move forward is live well. Live well and love well. He's right. Buster, welcome to the show.
It's like what one person once told me, the best revenge against somebody is to be successful.
Yes. Buster from Tennessee says, or Buster TN says, you can forgive, but it does not give someone a pass to continue the behavior, nor does it force you to put up with it. Yes, you're right. But also you don't have to forgive and you still don't have to give that person a pass to continue the behavior. And by not forgiving them, it doesn't force you to put up with it either. Tabletop Taproom says he owes for his action, but he does not live in my head. I actually pity the fool. I pity the fool also, but that's the whole point. You know, I don't know. I really think that the thing is with forgiveness is I think forgiveness sometimes is a tool that people use for their own mental health. And I can respect that. You know, sometimes some people need to say, I forgive and I let it go. But I really think a lot of times that you don't have to forgive and let it go. You can let it go, but you don't have to forgive the person. You know, a person, you know, they wrong you bad enough, you know, why, you know, by forgiving a person, it's in a way kind of a little bit of a pass, you know. Elk in the Antioch says, sometimes you cannot protect yourself from people continuing to harm you. Is withholding forgiveness healthy? If it is the only response you have. Well, the question is this, and I think you raise a good point. You say, is withholding forgiveness healthy? Yes, I think it is in some cases with some people. You know, I think your personality dictates it. You know, if forgiving somebody for wronging you makes you feel better, then it's a positive thing. You know, it's a very positive thing. But the thing is if you say, you know what, I'm going to draw a line here. Yeah, I'm not going to forgive you for your wrong. I'm not going to let you live in my head. I'm going to move on. I'm not going to have any stress. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to move on and be well. I think that's equally liberating in many ways. Death Angel Shadow says, no more stress. My wife was no longer having nervous breakdowns. We got our own home. Everything happened according to a higher plan. Yeah, I mean, thing is it's, I don't think not forgiving gives a person stress. Maybe it does to some people.
Yeah, I mean, it can cause stress and anxiety, but how and what are you going to do to control that for your personal well-being?
Well, I mean, I guess it all depends on the wrong, you know. Tom says, forgiving my ex made her more bitter and nasty. I expect that hate and bitterness to shorten her life, but it's on her. Death Angel Shadow says, my wife still asks me all the time if I heard from my sister. Yeah, I have a brother that I have not talked to in years. And my brother, I just got to the point where I put my boundaries up, and my boundaries were just, I was not going to tolerate his bullshit anymore. And, you knew my brother. You've met him, Steve.
Yeah, I don't remember him clearly, but yeah, I think.
Yeah, I did everything when I had my own publishing company. I tried to hire him to build me an office, just all of that stuff. And it was just a mess with him. And
well, we tried to do hire him for some work on the old farmhouse too.
Yeah. And, just irresponsible, alcoholic, into drugs, all of that. And it's like, you know what? Enough is enough,
yeah. And if you're alcoholic or you're into drugs and stuff, you're just basically, you don't want, you see the truth, you just don't want to face the truth. So you're going to try to salve it over with whatever you can, which is where the drug use and other stuff comes in at. It's self-denial. You just refuse to own up to the fact that you screwed up your life and you're the one that's got to fix it, but you don't want to fix it.
Yeah. Fugly brings up a point. He says, forgiveness basically means that you will not seek revenge. There's no eye for an eye. You say this ends here with me. Is taking control and not hold a grudge. You can still set boundaries. See, this is the whole point that I disagree with, because in order to not seek revenge, there's a few people out there that I have no wish to have revenge on, but I haven't forgiven what they've done to me. I don't need an eye for an eye with them. And it ends with me. I can take control without forgiving the person. And I'll bring up the person from North Carolina as an example. As bad as he's wronged me, you know what? More power to him. I think, at the end of the day, he is getting his karma, if you will. And I just go back to the way my dad put it. The best revenge is to live well and love well, and it's not even really a point of revenge with me. The thing is what people, when they wrong you, I think want is, and it depends on the wrong. Okay. But when people wrong you, they want to interrupt your happiness. They want to interfere with that happiness.
Yeah. They're not happy. So they're going to make you unhappy so they feel better.
Yes. Tippertop Tapper says, Jesus said, be wise as a serpent, but harmless as a dove. If Mr. North Carolina came to a church seeking salvation, well, I'll be mindful of all the bullshit, but not share the gospel, but we'll share the gospel, but I'll give him rope. But the thing is, this is the whole point about it all, is it doesn't have to be forgiveness is pushed in a biblical principle, but there's a lot of people that don't think biblically, and there's a lot of people that are not religious out there. And Elk of Antioch says, alcoholics test the limits of Christian concepts of forgiveness. Alcoholics Anonymous has its own spiritual traditions around forgiveness. Yes. And then Fugly says, boundaries are not revenge. Perhaps you have forgiven and you just don't know it yet. No, the thing is that's the point, is that, I have not forgiven him. But the thing is, I don't need to hold on to him in order to move on. And that's the whole thing that's interesting about this whole drive on social media that I've seen, especially TikTok, is people are talking about, no, I'm not going to forgive you, because I don't need to forgive you to move on. Now, I'm not saying that that's the case with everybody. A lot of people need to forgive the wrongdoer to kind of bring them their own peace together. And I can respect that. But I don't think it's necessary across the board with people. Tabitha Tapperton says, interfering with your happiness is the core value of Mr. North Carolina. Yes, it is. So, I mean, Tom, you mentioned, you bring a good point up here on something. You said that, if he showed up at your church seeking salvation, okay, you'd be mindful of all the BS, but would share the gospel, but I'll give him rope. But if you forgive him, why are you giving him rope? The thing is forgiveness is about, forgiving the person for the wrongs they do for you. Tom says he's loser and lost. He's a pitiable fool. Cool for Mr. T. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, for me, like I said, I don't have to forgive a person to move on mentally. I don't need to forgive a person to push forward. What's your take, Steve, overall?
Well, for me personally, I'm going to forgive the person, but yeah, I think that you hit a certain point, you're just going to go, okay, I forgive you, but you're staying over here and you're going to stay away from me so that I don't have any further problems with you.
Fugly says we all negotiate with the words of Jesus and the rest of the scriptures, but Jesus is quite explicit in this case. That's hard to negotiate. You're assuming everybody is a Christian, Fugly.
That's true. Yeah, because there's people that aren't, that they wrestle with this.
Well, I can tell you right now that, forgiveness is a big thing in Islam also, with Muslims. It's huge in Islam. And in the Quran, it talks a lot about forgiveness, but also in the Quran, it talks about there's a point where you do not have to take the stones being thrown at you. And, I know that, talking about Islam in a room full of Christians is frowned upon. But the thing is, keep in mind one thing, forgiveness is not a Christian concept. A lot of people think it's uniquely a Christian concept, but it really is not. In Buddhism, forgiveness is a huge thing. In fact, forgiving and forgetting is a massive thing. Death Angel Shadow said Jesus had righteous anger as well, flipping tables.
Oh yeah, yeah. He was whipping people with some kind of cord. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, he was out there just whipping the money changers. So
yeah. So the thing is again, a lot of people are not Christians out there. A lot of people are not religious. And, a lot of people, like I said, I have on my page alone, I think I have half a dozen Muslims, a few really hardcore Christians. And when I say hardcore Christians, I mean, they are, really, really hardcore. In fact, I got one who is, and I'm not knocking Catholics, but he's about as Catholic as you can get. He's Roman Catholic. And he's very, very tightly Catholic. Tabletop Tapperton says, my sister is persona non grata, but that is on her. There's no making amends, and she has doubled down on her lies. Not my problem. But if you forgive her, by forgiving a person, you're giving them, I think, in a way, a pass. Fugly says forgiveness does not require taking stones. Removing oneself from the equation is respectable. That's paraphrasing Bowen theory, yeah. Those tables were made of stone, so yeah, he was using carpenter muscles or it was a miracle. But the point being is I think that, and again, we're talking New Testament here, folks. Because if we broke into the Old Testament, shall we talk about forgiveness using Old Testament or Testament principles?
Yeah, the law was like eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth.
Absolutely. So, I mean, and the thing is, again, what changes? Council in Nicaea happened, and now all of a sudden we have a different Bible.
No, I mean, if you look at Jesus's teachings, it was, I give you a new law, a new way to do things. I want you to do this and that. And forgiveness was one of the new things that he did.
Mm-hmm. But the whole point of it is what brought the new law upon? Why did Jesus say that?
because it was he said it was a New Testament. It was basically
Mhm.
the law is fulfilled. We're now moving on to a new way of doing things. I
Yes.
can't fully explain it because I'm not sure how to put it into words, but
Yeah.
that's basically what it is.
Fugi says that's a Hammurabi code. Yes. But, I guess the thing is with forgiveness is, like I said, um, Fugi says there's no univocality in the Bible. That's true. That's very true.
No, what?
Univocality.
What's that?
One voice, one word.
Oh.
It varies.
Yeah, because it's I can't think of what that's called. Dispensationalism. There's different dispensations that have different rules to them. So
yeah. So like I said, I think it's really interesting. Tabletop Tavern says Proverbs 25:21 says, if your enemy is hungry, give him food to eat. If he is thirsty, give him water to drink. 22, in doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head and the Lord will reward you. Yes, but the thing, and then Organic says Christ's death happens. But again, I think what the core thing is we're all talking biblically.
Mm-hmm.
We're bringing religion into it. And if that is what you need to bring yourself inner peace, then that's respectable. But I think with a lot of people is they don't think biblically. And they're not wrong for not thinking biblically, I don't think. I think that, I got a question. This is for chat. Do you think that people, and this like Elk of Antioch, Fugly, Tom, hold on. Tabletop Tapper says former dispensationalist here, and I can say dispensationalism is bullshit, in my humble opinion. Or Steve, what do you got to say to that?
I disagree because the Bible is very clear about it. Because like you look at everybody knows about Moses and the Ten Commandments and stuff like that. If you look at it,
hold on. Let's bring a good point up. Stop right now.
Mm-hmm.
Moses and the Ten Commandments. So if we're going to follow biblically here, Tabletop Tap Room, Steve, Elk of Antioch, Fugly, let's talk biblically. How many of you support Donald Trump?
I do.
Why do you support Donald Trump? Donald Trump has violated at least a half dozen of the Ten Commandments, multiple times.
No.
Don't say like Hillary. Don't say. I'm not talking about anybody else. I'm talking about for those of you who support Donald Trump that are religious, that bring up biblical teachings of Christ and bring up the Ten Commandments. How can you support an individual who sat there has violated at least a half dozen of the Ten Commandments, and I can give you the half dozen he has violated right off the bat?
Well, okay. Let me ask you this one. Didn't Jesus tell the adulteress, or what? That he didn't tell her, but the guys that were going to stone her, didn't he say, "He who has not sinned, cast the first stone"? Basically, we've all sinned. I mean, even
absolutely. But what are the Ten Commandments? The Ten Commandments are the what type of sins?
Cardinal sins, I guess.
They are the unforgivable sins.
Actually, the only unforgivable sin in the Bible is blasphemy of the Holy Spirit. That's the only one.
No, the Ten Commandments are there for a reason. The Ten Commandments are actually listed in the Bible as the Ten Commandments of God.
Mm-hmm.
They are the Ten Commandments that you shall not violate.
Right. But there's also an atonement system because God knew that people would violate them.
But the thing is the whole point of the Ten Commandments is those are the commandments of God, that if you violate those any of those commandments, then you are not to receive forgiveness. I mean, you tell me that if somebody murdered somebody, that they deserve to go to heaven? That's the whole thing.
Yes.
What's that?
If God forgives them, yes.
But God doesn't forgive people who violate any of the Ten Commandments. That's why he has his 10 Commandments put upon the people.
Okay.
And then Fugly says adultery had a very different meaning in first century Israel. Yeah, it did. And also terminology is a lot of things. Like the word companion means something very different now than it meant, in medieval times. Tabletop Taproom says David broke many of the 10 Commandments, yet God said he was a man after God's own ear. Fugly says only women can commit adultery by law. Heart. Yeah, and that's actually still a thing in a lot of Christian-based teachings, and also and then Tom says, whoops, you are so wrong, Don. Why am I wrong? I wish you could get in this video. I really do.
Well, here's a thought for you. Moses murdered an Egyptian, and yet God calls him, well, kind of in the same stripe as David. David murdered, Moses murdered. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so, it's not an unforgivable sin because
So,
God
agree.
forgave David, but David also had to go through the not the punishment, but the consequences of his sins. So he had
Mhm.
to face that. He was forgiven. God forgave him, but it's just he still had to face the consequences. So
Yes, but the thing is, was God using them as a lesson, him as a lesson to the people through his to do it through his teachings.
oh,
I mean, David was used as an example. Yeah, he did murder and commit adultery. You're right, Tom. But the forgiveness of David, I think, was done by God as a demonstration to the people of the joy of faith or the reality of faith. And David did have consequences, absolutely. Um, Buster from Tennessee, or Buster, Tennessee, TN. Sorry, I'm saying Tennessee because you got TN. It says Christians still think the commandment says thou shalt not kill, yet it actually says thou shalt not murder. But
yeah.
go ahead, Steve.
No, I say he's right. It does say you shall not murder because if you're not to kill, then how do you explain God going out and telling David go over there and basically brush hog these guys and the Philistines and stuff like that?
Because the thing is, there's in the Bible there is murder, then there's righteous killing,
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
and that's the difference. You
Mm-hmm.
see, we're not talking about somebody doing something that's a violation of one of the Ten Commandments. We're talking about somebody that does it sort of like with a pass, if you will. I know I'm oversimplifying this. Okay, I know I'm oversimplifying it, but I mean, um, Fugly says Moses is most likely a fictional character. That's not a popular opinion, but is supported by many scholars. David as well. David was not even the first to slay Goliath. Steve, input?
I disagree because if the Bible says it, I believe it. Plus, there is more and more historical evidence that David existed, Moses existed. They have things like the what were those bone boxes they call? I can't remember what they're called, but they're somebody dies, they rot away, they throw their bones in this little
Oh, oh
mo- all I can think of is mortuary, but that's not what it
no, it's
is.
not a mortuary. It's a. Give me a
But
minute.
anyways, they found a couple of those that actually had House of David, and we're talking the actual David from the Bible, the way it was spelled and everything. And they found inscriptions, they found the and I am just having word problems tonight. It's the thing that they used to wrap around the arm, which had like a scroll with prayers on it. They found those, and they had David's name on it, and it wasn't like a generic David name. It was David the King. So yeah, there's
Mhm.
there's archaeological proof that he existed, and a lot of it.
Well, the thing is the I think one of the problems. I know we're going like way off topic here from forgiveness.
Well, I got one to throw at you.
we are veering off the road here, folks. But interesting topic tonight.
So are they changing the Bible and the wording in the Bible? Did it say one time kill and one time murder? What version of the Bible are you looking at?
There is empirical proof that the Bible was modified heavily during the Council of Nicaea. That is a fact. Okay, and there is huge data and proof that backs that up. Yeah, I set the table, Tom. Amen, brother.
Well, here's the thing: is you have to remember that there are Bible translations because you look at like there's the Geneva Bible, there's the King James Bible, there's the Bible that the Catholics use. There's if so, what I look at is you want to go back to the original manuscripts, and it's
but the thing is, what were the original manuscripts written in? The original manuscripts were only written in 3 languages, Steve.
mm-hmm.
What were they?
Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic.
Bingo, Aramaic, the big one.
Hmm.
Because why is Aramaic so key in this? Because Aramaic was spoken widely across Israel. In fact, Aramaic was a stronger language in Israel in that time than Hebrew was.
Hmm.
Aramaic was kind of like the standard English language of the time.
Right.
Tabletop Tapton says some Bibles translate the thought and some translate the word. Absolutely. Fugly says, I hate it when people manufacture artifacts because even when disproven, the story still persists. Aramaic. And the thing is, and I'm not trying to, I know we're opening up a massive can of worms here with this, okay? But the thing is earlier someone mentioned translation.
Mhm.
It's like common words we use today, okay? Like companion today was used widely and referred to as a person's wife back in those times.
Yeah,
The
words
word
change meaning over time.
absolutely. So what you have to do is you have to take a look, not how it's viewed, and I think that's the problem with a lot of people with the Bible is they. Buster TN says the issues were in the translations in the Greek. Yeah, they went from Aramaic and Hebrew into Greek, and whenever you have a book, and this could be proven right here, I could get everybody a 500-page book and say I want you to write it out word for word, and I guarantee everybody here will change it just a little bit. And that's been the problem over time. Tabletop Tap says I like a word translation. I don't need someone else to tell me what the thought was or what I should think. But Tom, the problem with that is that happens every single day in church. Every Sunday you go to church and your pastor tells you what those words mean. And it's an interesting point. I had a professor in one of my courses talk about this. And he talked about the fact that, what is the purpose of your pastor? Really, when you fundamentally look at it, the purpose of your pastor is to guide his congregation. It is to listen to his congregation. And a lot of times pastors don't listen. They do nothing but they try to proffer their translation of what biblical passage means. Buster Tian says, words and even sayings I heard out of pocket used by some kids. I use that for something totally different. Tabletop Tapping says, historical grammatical interpretation demands you interpret it in the ear of the original hearers. Absolutely. And I don't know what your program was like, but in my program, we got heavily into Aramaic. Heavily into it at American University. And the reason why we got heavily into Aramaic is because that was the baseline language.
Mm-hmm.
Tom says, Don, no offense, but you sound like you have an axe to grind. No, I don't have an axe to grind. What I do is I look at it realistically, Tom. I am willing as a person to listen to all sides. I have only disagreed to a couple things people have said here. I have not openly called anybody wrong here. And the reason why is because everybody's allowed, again, the Bible is about interpretation. It really is. Tom, you, me, and Steve can read a Bible verse and disagree in this independent meeting. Tom says, not in an independent church, believers have individual soul liberty. Yeah, because the Bible speaks to the person reading it, or is supposed to. I mean, and, Tom, you say no offense, but you sound like you have an axe to grind. Well, I think you say that, Tom, because I disagree with you. No, I mean it. I mean, and the thing is that's the whole point of, there's one of the biggest problems with the Christian religion is that people take somebody saying, you know what, I have a different point to make as them either having an axe to grind or them, disagreeing with them. I think one of the fundamental things of the Bible is I think that people don't disagree with each other enough over it. I think a lot of times people do disagree with what their pastor says, but they're afraid to speak up. They don't want to become that one voice disagreeing with their pastor and what their pastor says.
Well, here's a funny part. For some of you that don't know, I am part Jewish on my mom's side, and there's kind of a running joke among the Hebrew scholars is wherever you have 3 Jews, you have 4 opinions.
Yeah. But then again, if you take a look though, real quick, Tom says pastor cannot push his interpretation as too many others push back, and he can be voted out at a business meeting. But see, again, here we go. So basically, the pastor who is designed to lead the congregation is just a business. This is just treated as a business. Well, is that really a church?
Yeah, I have
mean-
problems with churches like that where the
You were part of one, Marshall.
Well, I have a problem with just a church because we're back, when it all started, they didn't have many homes and many churches. Your church was wherever you wanted it to be. It could be in the grassy area.
You're talking about the theory. Real quick, hold on a minute. Tabletop Tepper says, but in a denominational structure, the pastor can't be voted out. That's true. And then Elk in Antioch says, I don't believe accurate translation of literal words to modern English is not possible in the way some mean. Language always had nuances. Yeah, but the thing is, the Elk of Antioch, the problem with that is that words definitively have changed over time. And the problem is what something meant 2,000 years ago means something very different today. But if you're applying the literal translation from the Aramaic of 2,000 years ago and you're applying it to today's meaning and today's word meaning and the nuances of it, then the problem that you have with that is that, are you really interpreting that verse how it is meant to be interpreted then? Because you're interpreting something that was written 2,000 years ago via modern language, modern verbiage, and such, modern linguistics, but it was written 2,000 years ago.
Well, that's the thing with if you're talking about the versions of scripture that these different translations are translated from, the one that I fall back on all the time is the Textus Receptus. That's the one that that like the Geneva Bible was based off of, King James was based off of, and stuff. And what you can do is you can go to biblical scholars who have the history on the original meaning of those words. And, I can go to, say, like King James and say, okay, this is what the original manuscript said. This is how they translated it. It may have been correct for that time, but it isn't now. So you can get a more modern, like ESV is a lot more modern, and it takes the original word in its original context and it translates it into the proper word that we use today. Because just as a rough example, maybe that word in the past meant cart and it was translated as car, and then we go back and go, oh no, it actually meant a cart. So we just changed that word in our translation to something more accurate to what it is today.
But how many do that?
Not many. There's a lot that just translated however they want it to sound, and you just have to be able to go out there, find out which of those that they are, and just avoid them. Because like I say, ESV, even ESV isn't perfect because you can't perfectly translate from one language to the next, but it's a pretty solid translation as far as I've seen so far.
Elk of Antioch says the Elk of Antioch. Hold on a minute, let me back up. Tom says at the Elk of Antioch, this is why we study to show ourselves approved unto God. And then Fugly says King James is probably the worst translation. It was considered old and poorly translated at the time it was first published.
Yeah. So yeah, Geneva Bible, ESV, those are all good ones.
I have to ask Tom from Tabletop Taproom a question since you're in chat. Is what do you think is the most accurate Bible out there, Tom? Fugly, same thing for you, and Thyatis, Elk and Antioch. Anybody? I wish to get feedback on that, because the thing is with me is that I think a lot of times is, and again, I think every program's different. I think maybe the program I went through is more clinical. But the thing is, real quick, Elk Antioch says, I completely agree, but I don't think there was ever a time when language was settled. There was no dictionaries until modern times. Also, every writer can mean to portray the meaning of the words differently. Well, yes, and well, they can portray the meaning of the words differently, but how do I want to say this? Tina's my wife, and I just use that as a really good example because this is really provable. But in 2,000 years, well, would somebody refer to my spouse? Would it be spouse? Would it be something different? What would she be called 2,000 years from now? Again, language changes and evolves. And I think the problem with the Bible is, and this is where I think one of the biggest problems of the Bible is I don't think the Bible has changed and evolved scripture-wise to reflect the changes and the involvement of people who read it and study it. Because again, we can all look at the same Bible. Everybody in chat, all of us can sit in a big room at a conference table, and we all can look at the same Bible, the same chapter, the same verse, and we all can get something different out of it. And I think there's where it's at. It's, faith is different to everybody. That's why you have people who self-flagellate. And you have people that look at that and go, I mean, you grin, Steve, but self-flagellation is actually
a big thing in some people.
Exactly. So the thing is, and then some people don't read the Bible at all, but they have faith. Some people have to read the Bible every night to have faith. Are they wrong to not read the Bible? Are they wrong to believe in God and not go to church, as an example? And again, I think that's where I think what you have to do is you have to look at an individual. What are their beliefs? And plus, then you start getting to the whole can of worms is are Muslims doomed to go to hell? Are Jews doomed to go to hell? Are Buddhists doomed to go to hell? They're not Christian.
But let me throw this one at you.
What's
Just
that?
because I'm sitting here thinking.
Oh, God.
So I know this could be really dangerous. So some people say there's only one God. So if there's only one God and there's this whole world, what did he let everybody in the world see things differently so they could cope in their own way? So forgiveness then, what does it matter how you forgive because it's in your own interpretation?
Okay, not trying to put words in my wife's mouth, but I think what the point that she's trying to get across is that, and
you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I know exactly because me and you have discussed this.
Yes.
Okay, I think I know what my wife is meaning. Is that God is real? Okay, but how do we know that God did not appear to different peoples in different ways and let them interpret him and his teaching in different ways because those people needed it to be taught that way or to interpret it that way? Such as, Christians say, God is all powerful. Muslims say what? Muhammad, right? No one's talking? Steve?
I can't speak to that. I don't know.
No, the thing is what people different religions is one. I guess my wife is trying to make a point is Fugly says there's no monotheism in the Bible. And then he says, Peter says the message is very good at paraphrasing the metaphors of the New Testament. It's not so good on the Old. And then Buster Tian says, don't need an evolving Bible, though. But the thing is maybe, bingo, Elk of Antioch, Allah. Because why? And this is a good point about Islam. Muhammad. Well, who taught Muhammad? Allah. Does anyone care to know God? And the thing is although the Quran teaches in a different way, it depends on what you say he's teaching. Allah is not all powerful, by the way. Actually, Buster, you actually are incorrect in that, per the Quran. I speak Farsi fluently. I've read the Quran a dozen times. It was required in in my military school, my language school. The thing is, and again, we're kind of really going off the beaten path here, but the problem is that you say per the Quran, depends on what you say, is teaching Allah is not all powerful. Allah was not God though, but yes, he was, because the thing is this is when you read the Quran says in the fourth pillar that Allah is a literal representation of the one being God. Okay, so maybe Allah was not God, but Allah if you want to kind of tier it, was probably more of the level of Jesus. Okay, so what's really, really interesting is, and again, I love talking about Islam in the Quran. Yeah, I was. And the thing is, real quick, Elkan says, Augustine and Thomas Aquinas radically changed the understanding of the Bible from what went before. Yes. Tom disappeared. Hope I didn't piss him off. No, I mean, I hope I didn't, because the thing is that, the thing with what we're discussing is that's why we call the show the Vlog of Many Things. Because sometimes we talk about a bunch of fun things where people are laughing and enjoying themselves. And sometimes we talk about topics that can be sensitive to people. I'm not disagreeing with the person to piss them off. I'm disagreeing with them because I disagree with them. Oh, wait a minute. Toddler had to poop? Never mind. Tom gets a free pass on that one. I had 4 girls. I get the toddler thing. When they say poop, you better get your butt up and get going. Tom, you get a free pass about that one, okay? I guess at the end of the day, people, with me, is I think religion can be a very positive thing. But I think one of the biggest problems with people in religion is they kind of really get entrenched. And they don't take a look sometimes at the broader picture of things. Hello. Is watching Oliviana, the little one that Tom and Tammy have. So the thing is I think one of the big things is, and this is one of the things I think that where different religions teach different things, and different religions are perceived differently. It's like a lot of people, if you ask them, they'd ask you like, well, is Islam a violent religion? And a lot of people would say, well, yeah, look at all the extremism out there. And actually, Islam is a very peaceful religion. In fact, Islam pushes forgiveness and letting things go more so than the Bible does, the Christian religion does. And a lot of people don't like hearing that. And the reason why they don't like hearing that is because of, what has happened in the Middle East with radicals. But think about it this way. There's radicals in everything. There's radical Christians out there. There's, the Christian militias and such here. And we got in Michigan that are just batshit off the rails. But I think at the end of the day, it kind of loops back down to the whole term of forgiveness. And that is, if forgiving somebody is something that you need to have in order to have peace, then do it. But I don't think it's necessary to have peace. Let's go to viewer mail real quick. Okay. we got a few emails from people, and, never mind. Thomas from Fairfax, Virginia mentions that he saw our post on the Facebook for Vlog of Many Things about forgiveness, and asked about, he says, I seen you mention your show on forgiveness on your Facebook, and I want to know why forgiveness is needed unless you follow biblical principle. Thomas, if you're in the chat today watching, you probably get the idea why now. Tabletop Tap says, yet Muhammad said that he found the sword more effective for evangelism than preaching. Yes, but you're not looking at the metaphorical aspect of it. And what you're doing, Tom, is you're taking the 5th pillar of Islam, my friend, and you're taking that much of it, and you're leaving out the other like 12 or 15 paragraphs that talk about like what the 3rd pillar of Islam talks about. What is the sword? The sword is not what we literally interpret the sword as. The sword is the word of God. the sharp word of God, the teaching of God. That's what they mean by the sword, by the way. You're taking it literal. And then Elk of Antioch says religions suffer the end of the egg problem. Gulliver's host fighting over breakfast eggs. Viewer mail would be good. Oh, Tom, come on now. We're all having fun here. Forgiveness is for the forgiver, not for the forgiven. Again, Thaddeus, if that's what a person needs, I don't disagree with it. I just don't think it's necessary. And I think it varies by person. But back to viewer mail. Eli from Birmingham, UK says, "Why are you so against AI? You seem to hate it." Boy, talk about a topic turn on this. I'm not against AI.
Do we hate AI? It's are you using it correctly? Most people don't. Because I use it every day, but I'm also very circumspect in how I use it.
Well, it's like with me with publishing. I don't use AI to edit. I don't use AI for art. I'm not against AI, and I don't hate it. Well, let me back up. The only way that I'm against AI is I don't like AI when people use it to create, like books or something, and they claim I wrote that because you didn't write it. Or they use it to create artwork, and they say, "Oh, look what I created." You didn't create nothing. The computer created it for you.
Mm-hmm. Of somebody else's work.
Yeah, it's like creating a Word document and going through and doing the spell check on it and everything and say, "I edited it." Well, no, Microsoft Word edited your document. You just did the clickings and accepted the change or not. It's just, with me, it's a business thing. Cool Shade 201, the internet. Oh God, he's got an interesting one. I don't think I want to touch this one. He says, "Why do you not talk more politics? With so much happening, it would be something interesting to cover more. After all, you are the vlog of many things." He's got a point, and we probably will touch on politics, and we already do once in a great while. Usually ends up half the chat gets pissed off and leaves the show, but you know what? Tabletop Pastor says, "Yes, Skynet will be the image of the beast." Thida says, "I look at AI like a gun. There are proper uses for all tools, improper uses for all tools." That's true. But again, it all goes down to, I think, going back to the original subject, forgiveness. I think it just all, forgiveness is a tool. And some people use it to make themselves feel better, but I don't think it's a tool you have to use to feel better. I think maybe that's a better way of explaining it. Anyone? Steve? You're silent? Because Steve's not paying attention to the show. He's watching something online, I can tell.
No. I just don't have anything to contribute on that point.
I just think you need to do it based on what makes you feel good so you can move on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, again, I think, some people, because I've seen several people in here talk about, forgiveness is for you, not for the person you're forgiving. And if that's what you need to do to make yourself move on and feel better, I think it's a great thing to forgive people. But with other people, I think, I'm not going to condemn somebody if they don't have to forgive, to move on and to find peace. Because again, TikTok is interesting because that's coming up a lot more on TikTok. Tabletop Tapping says, "Politics and religion are the only truly interesting topics to discuss, but people will not. People will look to pigeonhole you with, obviously you're an X party." No, and I want to say something here about that. When I made the Trump comparison, okay, I was making the comparison for a reason. The reason why I was making the comparison is because, let's face it, Donald Trump is the first president in history who has proven to have multiple affairs, multiple bankruptcies. I mean, that's a fact. And 38 felony convictions. I mean, he is unique. Okay. Whether you like him or not, he is unique. And that's the reason why I brought up, I'm not trying to pigeonhole people because they're this or that. I'm just saying that I brought him up to make a point because it related to our talking at the time about the 10 commandments in religion. Tabletop Top Student, it's like online dating. I don't even want to know you if you voted for so-and-so. Buster TN says AI is getting scary. Too many cases where current AIs are starting to lie and blackmail. Yeah, I know. We talked about that. You ought to go to our chat a couple weeks ago, Buster.
Yeah.
We went into that.
Oh,
Not
did you
sure
hear
if-
about? Did you hear about the AI that deleted an entire company database?
Oh, I read about that today.
No.
Yeah, just absolutely, just straight up.
And then it
nuked the
started. Then
database.
it started. What, Steve? Didn't it start apologizing for doing it?
I don't remember. All I remember was seeing the headline that it just nuked the whole database.
Death Angel Shadow says bogus convictions. Again, I think politics is like religion. People want, and I'm not disagreeing with you, and I'm not agreeing with you. I guess my whole point, Death Angel Shadow, is that, the problem with politics and religion is this, is that I have never, in all my years on Facebook, all my years online, seen anybody who is being confronted with a religious or a political opposite opinion go, holy shit, you made a good point. I changed my mind. I've never seen it. Death Angel Shadow says, I agree. AI is getting scary. I'm in IT and I don't trust it. Buster says it's insane. And then Tabletop taps him. So while he is present, I pray for him, whether I like him or not. Same for Obama Biden. Thais says, no regrets. LOL. Well, you work with AI, Thais. So has AI tried to delete any databases or try to bribe you? Blackmail you? I don't think you work on Grok.
I use OpenAI. OpenAI is the one I use.
Well, I know that Grok about a week and a half ago went full Adolf Hitler and started referring to
Grok
as
is
Hitler.
freaking off the rails. I won't touch that one.
And I don't know which is the one. I think it was. Oh, which one, Steve? Which one was it that deleted the entire database?
Wasn't that
I didn't see that mentioned in the article, but it was it's probably one of the custom ones, like what Salesforce uses.
Yeah, because the article I read is it deleted the entire database, and then it was going like, "My bad, sorry for doing that." Thaitis says, "I work with security AI systems." That's even freaking scarier.
Well, there are some good security AIs out there that if as long as you keep them sandboxed, they're very good at patrolling a network and watching for like intrusions and stuff like that. Because if you're using them as like a guard dog, they're amazing for that.
Tabletop Tapper brings a good point. He says, my parents were split, one Republican, one Democrat, but they still loved each other. Division in the world right now. Thus, I stay quiet on politics to lower the temperature. You know what? I'll bring a good point. My wife graduated from the MSU, and my undergrad was the U of M, and we still are happily married and are stable together. So, I turn the other cheek when I look at the green and white. Okay.
Green and white was the best.
Yeah, blue and gold, honey, blue and gold. Just remember who you lay with every single night. Blue and gold. Death Angel Shadow says, we're all just batteries, right? I hate Salesforce. They make us use it for our ticketing system.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that. Salesforce is a horrible ticketing system.
Yeah. Tabletop Tapper says, this way I can still embrace my Republican, Democrat, Libertarian friends. You know what? It's and Tom, Eric, and me are a good, and Steve, me and Steve are a really good petri dish on this. Is me and Steve agree that we disagree on politics.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been friends with Steve going on 18 years now, Steve. And me and Steve talk every single day. We work on projects together. Me and Steve has been through some of the darkest times together as friends, and there for each other.
I still like telling people about the one time we were in your back office, and the girls up front were like, "Holy cow, it's World War III back there!" And then about 20 minutes later, we walk out. So you want to have a burger? And they're like,
"Yeah,
the heck, you guys were about ready to kill each other." Oh no, we're just talking.
Yeah, we were just talking that day. Yep, yep. Buster says the current AI can now do math, something they weren't even thought to be able to do. Tabletop says, wait, green and orange? Oh, no, she's a green and white girl. Tabletop taps me, so I draw a line at communist. El Cavanti says, I think democratic politics is understood to be about convincing a populace what issues are important and having the existing most popular solution to those problems, not change the existing opinions. And that says, they sure are, Steven. Stupid phone entered before I could complete the sentence right. Death Angel Shadow says there's the problem with political stuff on Facebook and other social media. The vast majority of people canceling people, especially longtime friendships, seem to come from one side. Yes and no, because the thing is I have been unfriended so much on Facebook because of things I post. I mentioned it last week. My friend Tina grew up with a lady named Shauna. And
Yeah.
Shauna is anti-vax. I admit I am not. Okay. Shauna is anti-gun. I am not. And she got pissed at me because I was having my kids fire the AR-15 at our farm. We had a farm, 55-acre farm. And she got angry because I posted pictures of my daughters with me hovering around them. It wasn't just like it's hand them an AR-15, go play on the yard, girls. I mean, I was right there hovering over them, made sure that they were responsible. And they were having a blast. I mean, Sarah was shooting that thing. What? It's 5 years old.
Yeah.
And she was handling an AR-15 at 5 years old like a champ. But
we
no,
still didn't get the barn doors down.
Yep. So, Death Angel Seto says, I've not blocked or canceled a single person for politics. Neither have I. I don't care. I mean, you look at my Facebook. I only have 113 friends because I'm careful who I let in my life. But the thing is I don't give a shit who you vote for. I don't care about. I mean, I've been on Thias's page disagreeing with them. Me and Thias are still friends. Because I can disagree with somebody, or I make the occasional political post on my page, and people come in and vehemently disagree with me. I don't get pissed off. I don't attack them. You know why? Because I made the post. When I make a post on Facebook, I anticipate and I want people to come in and say, you know what, Don, I don't agree with you. Because if in the end, if I'm only looking for people to kiss my ass and agree with me, then I'm on Facebook for the wrong freaking thing.
But you know what? The best one that you've been deleted for as a friend is the one of my old coworkers from many, many years ago over the whole Secretariat and how do they bury horses.
Oh, God. Okay. Real quick. I'll read Tom's chat. I got to say this. In the end, you attack America, I'll stand shoulder to shoulder with any Americans that don't care about politics. Oh, I agree with you 100%. I think that there is a enough is enough type level. I've been vaxxed except for one that doesn't meet the definition of a vaccine. Again, personal choices. Tabletop Tapper says, I don't care about politics, religion, orientation. Fellow American is a fellow American. Buster said, I don't even have a Facebook. Smart man. I hate how issues like vaccination have become completely binary. I'm not sure it is why to be pro-vax or anti-vax. Vaccinations have a sort of history in general, especially with government experiments. I got the MMR in 68 or so. And then Death Angel says, when I finally graduated from college, I signed up for classes at UCF. I found out there was a second MMR shot required now.
Oh, really?
Tina had a friend who oh God, this is so bad. So she goes on Facebook and she posts a thing on Facebook that said, Secretariat died, the racehorse.
Well, it was the movie came out. Secretariat died back in the late 90s.
Yeah, and she talked about the movie Secretariat came out.
Yes.
So me being who I am, I just made a post of, did you know that when Secretariat died, they removed Secretariat's heart? Because they do that with racehorses. And the entire post devolved because I guess people started going underneath me, and it wasn't me, and people got mad at me over it. All of a sudden, people are going into the post and start talking about making like bad jokes about making glue. And then it just was really, really bad.
We were just saying, and I can't remember what it was now. I think it's the head, the heart, and the tail that's buried.
No, they take the foreleg, the below the knee off. They take the head and the heart when they bury a racehorse, a successful racehorse, and they study it. And
I don't know. All went bad because I said I went past the grave like 6 months after it was buried because I was on a field trip or something like that.
Yeah, and so she got mad at me and she unfriended me. But she's also a lady that wrote, check this lady out. She resigned from my wife's school.
Yeah,
Tina, how many pages was her resignation letter she left on her desk in her classroom?
17.
A 17-page resignation letter left on her desk, and kids are walking in classroom to go to school, and she resigned.
Well, she resigned that Sunday night, so the kids came in and didn't have a teacher, and nobody knew where she was.
Yeah, and her resignation letter was just sitting on her desk, 17 pages thick. Woo!
Well, that's a rant.
Well, she was a train wreck.
Oh,
I'm not even, don't say it, Tina. I'm not even going to tell you
we
how she got her.
won't go there.
Yep, I'm not even going to tell you how she got her husband, her ex-husband, to ask her
No,
to
we
marry
won't
her.
go there.
Don't go there. Yep.
No.
Okay.
Tabletop Taproom says, and did you get blamed for the glue jokes? People were making glue jokes under me. I wasn't even making the glue jokes, and she got mad at me for it.
Yes.
Tabletop Captain says, sorry, but repubs and Dems are sheeple. I think politics in general creates sheeple. You know, I just really do. It's just sad.
You're going to get them regardless of what century you're in. There's always people that are going to be like, I believe this and I believe that. And a lot of them are only there because someone else is there and they want to feel like they're part of it. They don't necessarily even believe it. It's just, hey, what's the best way to get people to like me or get what I want or whatever.
I call Facebook. Facebook is a website of little islands. A lot of people treat them like little fiefdoms or islands. And that is, if you want to be a part of it, then you have to agree with me. Because if you don't agree with me, you're out. And I have never, ever deleted one person off of Facebook because they disagreed with me. I expect it. I know if I post something religious or political, there's going to be dissent. I agree. Go ahead. You know, and I don't attack them. Not one person is on my friends list could say I went after them on a post that I made on my Facebook because they disagree with me. I can disagree with you in an adult way, just like people who disagree with me. If you disagree with me in an adult way, I'm fine with that. A lot of times, though, like if I go on somebody else's page and I disagree with them, and if their friends begin chiming in and they become getting personal or nasty, I just walk away, you know, because I'm not going to feed the bullshit. But at the end of the day, go ahead and disagree with me. I mean, there's many people who disagree with me tonight. I'm not mad at Tom for disagreeing with me. Tom has a right to. Why? Because Tom's a human being and he's allowed to think how he wants to think. She said, Death Angel Shadow says, that's not a resignation, it's a manifesto. Oh boy, she was something else. Yeah, she was something else. Sergeant Reckless is buried at Fort Pendleton. That horse was truly a great American hero. Yep. And then let's say it, Karen. Oh, Karen, her picture's probably no. I don't think Karen describes her even. That's insulting.
No, Karen doesn't describe.
Total emotional train wreck.
I mean, if you're gonna wash the same cup 17 times when you're doing dishes, I mean, no, this is Karen. No, she's not Karen. She is just.
I can't even.
A whole new class of people, and I don't.
Okay, I published her book. Okay, she disappeared for 3 freaking years. Not a year, not 18 months. 3 years she disappeared. Didn't answer emails, phone calls, nothing. Social media, nothing. Just gone. And then one day showed up and said, "Is my book ready?" Remember?
I remember that.
And I was like, we've been trying to get a hold of you for 3 years. You haven't even improved your edit yet.
She was in her own cloudy world. I don't know how else to say it.
Diana says the friends list dog pile always pisses me off. Yeah, that's why sometimes if I go on somebody else's page and I say something, I just walk away from it. But Death Angel Shadow down was a good comment. Tom, guess what? You're going to have the last comment for tonight because it is already an hour and almost 15 minutes. Steve is enjoying his cherry orange.
Yeah, cherry lemonade.
Cherry lemonade. That's different.
Yeah, dark cherry or tart dark cherry and lemon juice and a little sugar, and it's just awesome.
Gotcha. Well, everybody, we appreciate the comments tonight. We had a feisty comments section, and that's actually the best show, one of the best ways we can do this show. I know that everybody does not agree with each other, and nobody doesn't agree with me, but guess what? You don't have to agree with me to be in the chat, and you don't have to agree with me to be a friend of mine. called free thinking, free will. So hope everybody has a good night tonight.
Have a
We'll be
great
back-
weekend.
Yep, have a good weekend. We will be back next week. Me and Tina are going to AgCon in Wisconsin. I'm going to try to hook up with Bad Mike because he drove up from Texas. And so going to try to meet Bad Mike. I'll finally meet Kim George and a few other folks, Tom Wham and such. Maybe if I get lucky, I'll meet Steven Deinhardt. It'll be the high point of my weekend. So,
Oh,
hey, by the way, everybody, on the RPG Gamer sales page on Facebook, you can pick up a brand new sealed copy of Giantlands, and it was discounted to $40 today. Good luck. So, everybody, have a good night, have a good weekend, and we will see you